The Lost World. Francis de Wolfe, Kevin McHugh, Gerald Harper and Carlton Hobbs in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's novel, adapted for radio by Peggy Wells and Barry Campbell. Part 2, The Edge of Terror. Extracts from the Expedition Journal of Edward Malone, reporter, London Gazette.
It was in May 1907 that our small party set out from London in search of the lost world of the Amazon. After travelling through dense forests, almost impenetrable jungle, and sinister swamplands, we finally found ourselves on the very threshold of that lost world. We had come at last to the line of high red cliffs, which we had first seen in the drawings of the dead American artist, Maple White. Our problem was to scale these cliffs, and late one afternoon, camped at the base of a huge pinnacle as high as the cliffs themselves, we held a council of war. Professor Challenger, as always, presided.
I need not say that on the occasion of my last visit, I exhausted every means of climbing the cliff. And where I failed, I do not think that anyone else is likely to succeed, for I am something of a mountaineer. I had none of the appliances of a rock climber with me, but I've taken the precaution of bringing them now. With their aid, I am positive I could climb the detached pinnacle to the summit. But so long as the main cliff overhangs, it's useless to attempt ascending that.
There seems to be only one sensible course. Let us split up into two parties, eastward and westward along the base of the cliffs, and seek for a practical point for our ascent.
I agree with Professor Summerlee. The odds of this plateau is of no great size, and if we travel round it, we shall either find an easy way up or come back to the point from which we first started.
There is no easy way up, Lord John. But I admit that there is a point at which ascent is possible.
How do you know, sir?
Because, Professor Summerlee, my predecessor, Maple White, actually made such an ascent. How otherwise could he have seen the monster which he sketched in his notebook?
There you reason somewhat ahead of the proved facts, Professor Challenger. I admit your plateau because I've seen it, but I have not as yet satisfied myself that it contains any form of life whatever.
What you admit, sir, or what you do not admit is really of inconceivably small importance. I'm glad to perceive that the plateau itself has actually obtruded itself upon your intelligence. Now, gentlemen, I think we cannot do better than to commence our scouting expedition.
Leaving our Negro servant, Zambo, to guard the camp, we set out. Challenger and Summerlee, with our 3 Indian bearers, took the easterly direction. Lord John and myself, accompanied by Gomez and Manuel, our 2 half-breed guides, went towards the west, through a rocky country of tree and bamboo, and always in the shadow of those gigantic cliffs.
So, young fella,
Yes,
how
Lord
far
John?
do you reckon we've come now?
From the camp?
Yes.
A mile or 2, perhaps.
Well, that's far enough, I think. Turn round, young fella. We're heading back to the camp.
Any special reason, Lord John?
The light's failing. It'll be pitch dark in half an hour, and I don't like the feel of this place.
I've been thinking the same thing myself. Only I didn't like to admit... I couldn't explain.
You don't have to explain. Look up there at those cliffs.
I am looking.
There's life up there. Bad life. Life that keeps watching us. When I think of that thing I saw flapping up out of the trees in the forest. Oh, it had a 20-foot wingspread and it had teeth like bread knives. If we... Hey, wait a minute. Where are those 2 half-breeds?
I don't know. I haven't seen them for the past 10 minutes.
Gomez! Manuel!
You don't think...
It's getting dark, young fella. Gomez! Manuel!
Señores! Señores!
It's all right, that's Gomez.
What's the matter?
Oh, señores! The other señor with the black beard, he has said there is a way up these cliffs. Manuel and I, we think we have found it.
What's that?
We'll show you, yes?
Show us what?
On these cliffs, I show you. We find what you call an arrow, drawn in white chalk.
Maple White for a 5.
We follow this arrow where it point. and we come to one opening in this rock of the cliff, an opening what you call
A cleft.
That's it, a cleft, one cleft where the rock open up. You follow me, yeah?
You bet your boots we follow you. Come on, Malone.
Hello there!
You don't expect an answer, do you?
I don't know what to expect. It's only a kind of gorge cut in the rock, not very deep. Oh, John, it's blocked. A dead wall.
Oh, no, it's not. Look.
Where?
Up the side of the wall, higher, up there. Heap of stones, loose like a ruddy staircase. And on top of that,
It looks like the mouth of a
it
cave.
is the mouth of a cave, and another arrow drawn on the rock. Up those stones with you now. Go on. Steady there. Hey, mind those loose stones, young fella.
Gomez! Manuel, you come too!
Si, senores, we come.
It's the gateway to the land of monsters, laddie. Through the mouth of that cave, there's a tunnel up inside the cliffs as sure as you're born. Easy now. Here, look, let me give you a hand to the top. Go on, up you go. Oh. Nothing can stop us now, young fella. I defy anything or anybody on top of these cliffs to...
What's wrong?
Well, I hate eating my words, young fella, when I'd barely put salt on them. But look there.
You mean...
It's blocks, that's all. The roof of the ruddy cave has fallen in. We're cut off by 2 tons of rock from the only way up.
What was that?
I don't know. It sounded like... Gomez, Manuel, did either of you laugh just now?
Laugh, senor?
Somebody laughed just then.
I don't know, senores. Maybe it was what Indian call a spirit of the woods that laughed.
Never mind the spirit of the woods. Can't we dig away through that loose rock?
No good, young fella.
Why not?
Well, you'd only start an avalanche. It'd bury us. Don't you touch it.
And there isn't any way up.
No, I'm afraid not. Come on. It's high time we were getting back to camp.
Too much cast down to speak. We made our way back to the camp. One incident occurred, however, before we left the gorge, which is of importance in view of what came afterwards. We were at the bottom of the chasm, some 40 feet beneath the mouth of the cave, when a huge rock rolled suddenly downwards and shot past us with tremendous force. We could not see where it had come from, but Gomez and Manuel, who were still at the opening of the cave, said it had flown past them and must have fallen from above. Looking upwards, we could see no sign of movement in the green jungle which topped the cliff. There could be little doubt, however, that the stone was aimed at us, so the incident surely pointed to some form of life upon the plateau. As we moved away, our minds were full of this new development and its bearing on our plans. When we reached the camp, we found the others waiting for us.
And you're sure, Lord John, there is absolutely no chance of our clearing the fallen rocks?
None at all.
Pity. Great pity. As to the incident of the falling rock, it would merely seem to confirm my theory that some form of life does indeed exist on the plateau. A theory which, I may add, has already been proven by our own discoveries, and it seems
Stop a minute. What did you find?
A human skeleton.
A what?
a human skeleton lying in a patch of bamboo, with the bamboo canes growing through its smashed ribs. Almost certainly the skeleton of a white man.
I quite agree, and I don't like this.
How did the skeleton get there?
Can't you guess, Lord John?
You mean this man fell from the top of the cliff?
He fell, yes, or was thrown. This man, probably a friend or colleague of Maplewhite.
We have no evidence of that.
We have every evidence, sir. This man was running in blind terror from something which appeared to him monstrous or diabolical. He fell to his death on the sharp bamboo points, or else he was taken by human hands.
Human hand?
Taken by human hands, as I now take this skull of his from my knapsack and dropped over the edge of that cliff, as I dropped the skull on the ground. So.
Oh, Santa Maria.
Will you now admit, Professor Summerlee, that there is malignant life on the plateau?
I don't know.
But does that matter now, sir?
Matter, young man?
Since we can't get to the top of the plateau.
I beg your pardon. We can get to the top of the plateau.
You found...
You mean you found a way up?
I venture to think so.
How? We can't climb the sheer face of the cliff. That's impossible.
Agreed, Lord John, agreed.
Then how in all blue blazes are you going to do it?
Will you permit me, gentlemen, to sit down on this log and address you as I might address a somewhat backward class?
All right, get on with it.
You will also, I hope, spare me your congratulations. My natural modesty forbids any such display. The inspiration, if I may term it so, came to me only 10 minutes ago. I was thinking, oddly enough, of a paper read to the Edinburgh Zoological Society by a certain Dr. Illingworth.
One moment, Professor Challenger.
You spoke, Professor Summerlee?
Were you by any chance referring to Dr. Angus Illingworth of Edinburgh?
I was, sir. Is he a friend of yours?
That charlatan, that insufferable mountebank, a friend of mine?
You agree, perhaps, that Dr. Illingworth has no sense?
I agree with the utmost emphasis.
His views on the Wealden slates are entire puerility?
His insulting review of my last book occupied 7.5 pages of the Zoological Quarterly.
Professor Summerlee, shake hands.
Professor Challenger, it's a pleasure.
Young fellow, my lad, listen. We've got it. The password, Dr. Illingworth of Edinburgh. Whenever these two start spitting in each other's eye, just mention Dr. Illingworth of Edinburgh. Got it?
Got it, Lord John. You were telling us, Professor Challenger, how we could get to the top of the plateau. Now, if we put the same question to Dr. Illingworth of Edinburgh...
Dr. Illingworth, the great zoologist.
He could probably tell us straight away.
Tell us like a shot.
And do you intimate, sir, that I can't? Look around you.
Well?
What do you see?
I see a campfire, load of provisions, line of red cliffs.
Nothing else, my friend?
Well, nothing will help us, no.
You don't see, for instance, the pinnacle of rock there. The pinnacle of rock that rises as high as the plateau and has a huge tree on top of it.
Well, that won't help us.
You think not, Lord John?
We've got rock climbing gear, yeah, we could get to the top of the pinnacle, yes. But even if we got there, we'd still be 40 feet from the edge of the plateau.
We can never get across.
We can at least all reach the summit. When we are up, I may be able to show you that the resources of my brain are by no means exhausted.
It was towards noon the next day, a brilliant, burning day, that the last of us managed to crawl up on top of that pinnacle, a grassy space some 25 feet square. It was a hair-raising climb, to say the least. But now, at last, we were able to gaze across at that curious plateau. There it lay, the lost world, across the 40-foot gulf, green and silent, its trees glistening in the sun where it stretched away from us, deep and sinister as a new continent.
This is indeed curious. Very interesting. Very interesting indeed.
What, Professor Summerlee?
This tree, Mr. Malone. You will please note the smooth bark and the small ribbed leaves. Tell me, are they not familiar to you?
Why, it's a beech.
Exactly, a beech tree. A fellow countryman in a far land.
Not only a fellow countryman, my good sir, but also, if I may be allowed to enlarge your simile, an ally of the first value. This beech tree will be our saviour.
George, a bridge.
Exactly, my friend. A bridge. Where willpower and intellect go together, there's always a way out. A drawbridge had to be found, which could be dropped across the abyss. Behold it. There is our bridge, gentlemen, to the lost world.
Brilliant, sir. The tree's a good way, 60 feet high. If it only falls the right way, it'll easily cross the chasm.
Mr. Malone.
Yes, sir?
You, my young friend, have the thews and sinews. I think you will be the most useful at this task.
I can hardly wait to begin, sir.
One moment, Mr. Malone. I must beg that you will kindly refrain from thinking for yourself. You will do exactly as you are told. Now, I suggest that you make your first incision here. Really, Mr. Malone, can't you go any faster?
Easy now. The lad's doing his best.
Oh, but this, sir, is a mere tree.
It is a tree 60 feet high. It's got to fall exactly across the gulf with its edge on the other side.
I have a presentiment, sir, that it won't.
Won't what?
Won't fall as we wish it.
Oh.
If it rolls over the edge and leaves us still without a bridge...
You know, Professor Summerlee, you're the cheeriest little ray of sunshine I ever did see.
I state an obvious possibility, Lord John.
I tell you, man, it can't.
Indeed, sir. And why not?
Professor Challenger's calculations.
I'm deeply suspicious of any calculations made by Professor Challenger on any subject.
Indeed, sir.
I repeat it, sir. And suppose the tree does fall as we wish it, how are we to get across?
Let us try the trunk of the tree and hop across. How
Over
else?
1,000-foot gulf underneath.
Dash it, man, there's no other way.
Even on this big grass plot, I have an unsteady feeling in the legs, as though something were urging me onto the edge. I confess it without shame.
Stand
and to
back.
cross that gulf on a
He's
tree
going.
trunk...
Glory, hallelujah!
Got it!
Stop dead on the edge, Professor Challenger. Shake hands.
Well, it seems to me there's a lot of indiscriminate handshaking going on, but by George, here's my hand too.
I remove my hat, gentlemen, and I thank you deeply for this not unmerited tribute. The resources of a great brain, if I may modestly say so, are equal to any small obstacle. There is the bridge. There is the last word. I shall now, with your permission, be the first to cross the bridge.
Half a minute, old chap. I can't allow that.
Do my ears deceive me, Lord John? You can't allow it?
Listen, old chap. Look over at those bushes.
Well, sir?
We're invading enemy territory, don't you see? It may be all right over there.
Oh, of course it's
But
all
there
right.
may be a tribe of cannibals waiting for lunchtime. We haven't got rifles, we haven't got anything.
Then what do you suggest?
Malone and I'll climb down again, fetch up the rifles.
Oh, this delay is intolerable.
I know, old chap, but better learn wisdom, before you get served up as veal stew. Oh, speaking of that, we'll also fetch up Manuel Gomez with provisions. Then you can cross the bridge, while we cover you with the rifles.
This is good sense, Professor Challenger.
I am not aware, sir, that I need to be instructed in good sense by you or anyone else. But I do agree that a certain elementary caution... Oh, very well, go and get the rifles, but hurry, hurry!
Ready now, everybody?
Quite ready, Lord John.
As for me, Lord John, I await your lordship's gracious permission to cross the tree bridge. Had I been aware that your lordship's permission was necessary at the beginning of this adventure...
All right, old chap, don't get your temper up. Gomez,
Yes, senor.
you and Manuel stay here when the rest of us go over. We may need to give you some instructions.
True, senor. You may need to give instructions. Yes.
Ready with the rifles, everybody else? All right, Professor Challenger, you first.
Sit down carefully, sir. Don't lose your grip.
I have no intention, young man, of losing my grip, either mentally or physically. The position, I confess, is a trifle undignified. It is not suited...
Easy now.
It is not suited to the historical painting, which will no doubt one day be made of this momentous occasion.
You next, Professor Summerley.
I'm quite ready, gentlemen. If you'll sling two of those rifles round my neck.
What's wrong, Professor Summerley?
Has it occurred to you?
Well, what?
Has it occurred to you that our friend Challenger, as he hops across there, looks exactly like a gigantic bullfrog?
One moment, sir. Did you by any chance say what I thought you said?
Don't stop, Professor Challenger. For God's sake, don't turn round.
Did you say bullfrog, sir? Were my ears assailed by any mention of a bullfrog?
Go on, sir. Go on to the other side.
I'm sorry, Professor Challenger, if the harmless joke offends you. Now, if you'll continue over to the other side, I shall follow you along the tree like this.
Easy now. Both of you.
Look here, Lord John. You don't think they're going to sit out on that tree and begin sloshing at each other 1,000 feet above ground?
I can't say they're crazy enough for anything.
It's all right. Challenger's over. Any sign of life in those bushes?
I can't see any. Done it. Somebody's over. All right, now you're next, my lad. Go on, over you go.
I don't like this a little bit. But if those two professors can go over and never turn a hair...
Now get careful. Get a good grip on the tree. That's right. And don't look down. It's looking down that gives you the vertigo.
I've got vertigo already, thanks.
Now,
But
don't look down. I keep telling you, don't look out.
I'm all right, Lord John. Nearly slipped.
Now, follow your own advice, young fella. Don't look round. What's the matter?
I'm just wondering, Lord John, what you think you're doing.
Me, young fella?
Yes, you.
Oh, I'm walking across, young fella, like this. It's so much simpler, don't you think?
And that was how, as the sun began to sink across the jungle, we first set foot on the lost world. No sign of life in all that green stillness. Not even the cawing of a bird. The last thing we saw as we looked back was Gomez standing motionless on the rock pinnacle, smiling at us. Ahead was a bolt of dense scrub, and we shouted congratulations to each other as we hurried forward. It was the last time we did congratulate ourselves on that evil day. Because when we had got no more than a dozen feet into the scrub, and I was nearest the edge of the cliff,
What was that?
I hesitate to pronounce an opinion, sir, when I can't see.
Professor
but-
Challenger! Lord John! Professor Summerlee!
Yes, what is it?
Come here! Come back here!
What is it? What's wrong?
The bridge has gone.
The bridge has gone?
Look for yourselves. The tree slipped off the edge of the cliffs. It smashed to pieces 1,000 feet below. Listen! I could have sworn I'd heard that laugh before.
You did hear it. It's the same laughing we heard in the gorge last night.
Lord John Roxton! Lord John Roxton!
That sounded like Gomez.
It is Gomez, senores. It is your faithful Gomez.
Where the devil is he?
I am on the other side of these, what you call, pinnacles, senores, where you can't see me and you can't shoot me. Who led you to this place? Manuel and I. Who pushed the tree over the edge? Manuel and I.
Challenger, just talk to the fella, will you? Hold him there. I'm going to slip along the edge of the cliff where I can get a side shot at him with my rifle.
Oh, John, wait.
Let him go, young man. Let vengeance go its course. I ask you the meaning of this, Gomez.
Ask Lord John Roxton. Ask him if he remembers shooting Lopez of the Putumayo River. I am the brother of Lopez, senores. Flail of the slave traders is Lord John Roxton. Flail of Lord John Roxton am I.
Professor Challenger, I can see Roxton now.
I say this last to you, and then I go away. You will die up there, senores. Cut off from the world. You will die up there because Lord John Roxton has shot my brother. And now at last
Lord John Roxton, they say, is a dead shot.
Yes.
Where's Manuel? He was with Gomez. Something tells me, with peculiar clearness, gentlemen, that we shall not be troubled with either of them any longer.
Excellent, Professor Challenger. Very good indeed. And doesn't it tell you anything else?
Anything else?
You've brought us to the ends of the earth, sir.
You gratify me, Professor Summerlee.
Your ingenuity has shown us a way to a land of monsters. But with that bridge gone, can your ingenuity show us any way down? By the Lord's mercy, sir, you've really done it this time. We're marooned.
For a moment, we stood staring at each other in bewilderment, marooned in a mysterious land in which lay unknown terrors, marooned without supplies or without any hope of contacting the outside world. In our first brief panic, however, we had forgotten the Negro Zambo, and it was his voice calling across that 40-foot gap which restored us to our senses.
Master! Master! Can you hear me, sir? Master!
Zambo! Zambo! You hear me?
Yes, master, I hear.
You perceive, I hope, that we are in a somewhat precarious position.
Now look here, old chap, you won't understand that highfalutin talk.
Look, am I the leader of this expedition, or am I not?
All right, but speak so you can get the hang of what you're saying.
I shall make myself perfectly clear. Zambo!
Yes, master.
You observe, no doubt, the critical nature of our situation.
Yes, master. Maybe ghosts get you.
What ghost? Oh, be quiet, Professor Summerlee. You have the rope there, Zambo?
Rope no good, master. Too dead to make bridge across.
I know that, my good Zambo.
Well, then what's the game? Would you tell us?
Throw one end of the rope across to us, then tie the other round as many boxes of provisions and ammunition as you can bring up. We'll drag them over to this side. Don't forget to include a camera.
Did you say a camera, Professor Challenger?
Yes, Professor Summerlee, I said a camera. I want photographic evidence if something should attack us.
Attack us?
If, in short, a flesh-eating dinosaur should step out of these bushes now.
Zambo, don't forget the elephant gun cartridges, will you?
No, Chief. I not forget.
And you won't leave your post.
No, Chief. I not leave. But no evil keep Indian.
Why not?
Too much afraid ghost. You be careful.
That thought was in our minds when we slept for our first night on the lost world. We supped and camped at the very edge of the cliff among some bushes. These bushes turned out, however, to be infested with enormous blood ticks, as I found out to my cost in the morning.
Most interesting, Mr. Malone. That blood tick on your leg, which you have so unfortunately crushed.
Good Lord, Professor Summerlee, did you think I was going to let that vile thing stay where it was? Look at all the blood which squirted out when I picked it off and burst it. My blood, sir. Mine.
Steady on, young fella, my lad. It's rotten luck we settled on this spot. Might have known there'd be some pretty diabolical insect life in these bushes.
Mr. Malone should be proud to be chosen. We cannot do less than call this first fruit of our labours Ixodes maloni. The very small inconvenience of being bitten, my young friend, cannot, I'm sure, weigh with you as against the glorious privilege of having your name inscribed in the deathless roll of zoology. Unhappily, you have crushed this fine specimen.
Fine specimen? Filthy vermin, you mean?
You should cultivate the scientific eye and the detached mind, Mr. Malone. To a man of philosophic temperament like myself, the blood tick, with its lancet-like proboscis and its distending stomach, is as beautiful a work of nature as the peacock or the aurora borealis. It pains me to hear you speak of it in so unappreciative a fashion. No doubt, with due diligence, we can secure some other specimen.
There can be no doubt of that, Professor Challenger. One has just disappeared behind your shirt collar.
What? Oh, gang!
The bushes were full of the horrible pests, and it was clear that we must shift our camp. We moved to a small clearing, thickly surrounded by trees on all sides. There were some flat slabs of rock in the center with a spring of water close by. Here we made our first plans for the invasion of this new country, surrounded by our ammunition and enough provisions to last for several weeks. This was to be our headquarters, our place of refuge against sudden danger and the guardhouse for our stores. Fort Challenger, we called it. The others slept that night round a dying campfire that threw gleams among the great trees round about. But I can't say I slept much. It was towards morning, in the hour of suicides and bad dreams, that suddenly...
Good Lord! Look out! Get away, you swine! What is this?
Somebody call out.
Easy, young fella, my lad. Now, what's wrong?
I don't want you to think I'm out of my mind, but I saw something.
Professor Summerlee, will you perk up that fire? Now, you saw what?
A white face. A human face.
All right, now where did you see it?
In that big tree, there, with the branches like ferns. The branches parted and the face looked down. It was flat and white, and it had a body like a reddish pig.
You were dreaming, young fella.
I wasn't dreaming, I tell you.
But a human face?
A human face or an ape's. That's it. An ape's, only without any hair and with curved teeth.
The anthropoid ape, young man, is unknown in South America. Are you quite sure of this?
Absolutely sure.
Had this creature a tail?
No.
Did you notice whether it could cross its thumb over its palm?
Hang it all, sir. I only got a brief glimpse, then I threw a stone and it swung away.
Oh, that was very hasty of you, my boy. Very hasty and injudicious. Had you been able to coax it down here...
Coax it down?
That's what I said.
It was the evilest-looking brute I ever saw in my life. You didn't want me to invite the damn thing to breakfast.
In the interests of science, young man.
As a scientist myself, sir, I agree with Malone.
You agree with Malone, sir?
I agree with Malone, sir. Have you forgotten the skeleton?
What skeleton?
The skeleton of the man thrown from these cliffs and impaled on the bamboo points 1,000 feet below.
Listen.
Was that the sound it made?
Yes.
If there are any more of these brutes hanging about, watching us,
There very probably are.
then we've got to walk softly and look sharp.
As soon as it's daylight, we begin our exploration.
In which direction?
Following the course of the stream, naturally. That will always lead us back to camp. We can surround our stores with thorn hedges. Then, when we penetrate into that forest in full daylight,
Very little forest, I should say. Swamp, swamp, and nothing but swamp. Shall we turn back?
turn back? Why?
I see no plant life of interest to the botanist. Only the swamp and our own footprints.
Stop a bit.
Well, Lord John?
Not only our own footprints. Look at that.
What in the name? Now do you believe, Professor Summerlee? Now is your small conceit broken.
What in the name of sense is it?
A three-toed footprint,
Well, I
gentlemen.
see that. Confounded, but the thing must be 4 times the size of an elephant. What sort of a bird leaves a track like that?
Not a bird, Lord John. A reptile.
A reptile with...
To be exact, a dinosaur. And you, Professor Summerlee, do you call me a liar now in face of these tracks?
I must confess, Professor Challenger. I really must confess. Surely, these tracks are Wielden.
Wielden, exactly.
Meaning what?
This is a creature walking erect on 3-toed feet and occasionally putting one of its 5-fingered forepaws to the ground. Now, if we were to see one of these animals...
We're gonna see one, old chap.
How so?
Because I swear these tracks are fresh.
Shh! Creep forward, all of you. Look through this screen of brushwood.
Is it?
Yes, my friend. The denizens of the lost world.
There were 5 of them, like a nightmare in daylight. Scaled like lizards, with witless rolling eyes that seemed to look at us through the brush. They sat up on their haunches in that glade and browsed on tree branches as a rabbit browses on lettuce. Stare of their eyes shocked you. It was like the dragon you dreamed about as a child. Their forepaws struck and slashed at the tree branches. When one fell down on its feet, you could feel the thud as the ground shook.
Quiet, everybody. Quiet.
Oh, am I seeing things?
Do you question, sir, the evidence of your own eyes? One moment. Don't fire.
Why not?
In the first place, the sound of a shot might alarm the whole countryside.
I know that, but if I could get one head, look, just one head to take home with me.
The whole sporting world would turn green. What about the newspaper readers?
Look here, Professor, if I just drilled the nearest one and looked straight through the eye...
You still wouldn't hurt him.
Well, not even with this gun?
Not even with that gun. Have you got the camera, Mr. Malone?
Yes, but I can't even get the blinders into the viewfinder. They're too big.
Keep down. They'll see us.
And you, Professor Summerlee, I can scarcely wonder that your eyes bulge and that your mockery of a pure intelligence returns to haunt you. What do you say?
Professor Challenger, I apologize.
Professor Summerlee, your apology is accepted.
Look, wait a minute, you two. Look, don't stand up, not to shake hands with the brutes right on top of us. Look out!
That one came down with all his paws at once. If he'd come down on us when he fell.
Like an elephant, walking on a grape. Yes.
But they seem harmless now.
My dear sir, they are harmless. The iguanodon?
The what?
The iguanodon, Lord John. You'll find his prehistoric footprints all over the sands in Kent and Sussex.
He's charming and childlike, like our friend Malone. He's all brawn and no brain. Observe the nearest one.
Well, not too close, thanks.
See, there. He reaches after a bunch of foliage too high in the tree. He can't reach it. So he uproots the whole tree. When the tree crashes over on top of them, the whole tribe take fright and run. A brief thunder of their passing, a gleam of slaty scales, and the glade is empty.
What will they say to this in England?
Oh, my dear Summerlee, I can tell you with great confidence exactly what they will say. They'll say that you are an infernal liar, just as you said of me.
Why, in the face of photographs?
Oh, faked, Summerlee, clumsily faked.
In the face of specimens?
Ah, there we may have them. Malone and his filthy Fleet Street crew may be all yelping our praises yet. The day we saw 5 live iguanodons in a glade of maple whiteland. Put it down in your journal, my young friend, and send it to your rag.
I'll be ready to get the toe end of the editorial boot in return. Things look a bit different from the latitude of London, young fella. All this'll seem a bit of a dream to ourselves in a month or two. I can't see us being able to lead an iguanodon back, show it off in Hyde Park.
You're quite right, Lord John. There's hardly any likelihood we shall get back ourselves. In the meantime, there's nowhere to go but forward.
We may have travelled a mile or more, keeping to the bank of the stream. A belt of brushwood led up to a tangle of rocks at the top of that boulder-strewn slope. Grey and eerie the place looked, with its graveyard rocks. Lord John was well ahead, scouting. We saw him get to the top of that slope. Then we saw him drop down suddenly as though he'd been shot, and peer over the edge.
What is it, Professor Challenger?
I don't know. He's signaling us to stop.
Listen.
Well?
Perhaps it was my imagination, but I could have sworn I heard a kind of...
Kind of what?
Oh, it doesn't matter now. Lord John is coming back.
Lord John? Is any...
Keep quiet.
Is anything wrong?
Well, listen, all of you. You want to see something that'll raise your hair, just crawl up and look over the edge of those rocks. Crouch down and don't make a noise.
What is it?
Forward now. That's it. Keep low.
What is it? I insist on knowing.
Do you hear anything, Lord John? All of you must hear it now.
I hear something.
You hear the Devil's Nursery, old chap.
Devil's Nursery?
It's a volcanic pit, like a big bowl in the rocks with green, scummy water at the bottom. And in that pit...
Well?
Pterodactyls. Thousands of them.
Pterodactyls?
Well, don't you remember that flapping thing with wings 20 feet long? I saw it over the trees the other day.
I do indeed remember the pterodactyl. Professor Summerlee said it was a stork.
I said so.
Do you deny you said it was a stork?
Keep quiet, for God's sake.
Remember Dr. Illingworth of Edinburgh.
Right, George. Neither Dr. Illingworth nor anybody else ever saw a sight like this. Crouch down and look over the edge.
The place was a breeding ground of pterodactyls. On rocks and in water seethed hundreds of specimens like medieval devils. Hideous mothers brooded over their leathery, yellowish eggs and watched their young in the water. Round the higher rocks sat the horrible males. They sat absolutely motionless, except for the rolling of their red eyes or a snap of their rat-trap beaks as a dragonfly went past.
Professor Challenger, I ask your pardon again. This is worth risking everything to see.
Refreshing, is it not?
Very refreshing. The flood of light it throws on the habits of the pterodactyl.
Shh, keep down, you two.
Observe the dead fish and birds among the rocks. This proves...
Gregarious, my dear sir, like penguins.
Not a doubt of it.
If we could perhaps have a closer view of the eggs.
Why not?
I'll tell you why not.
Aren't you interested, Lord John?
Interested? Yes, I'm interested in the soil around the edge of that water. Blue volcanic clay, ain't it?
I believe so. Why?
Well, never mind, but if you want to start something you can't finish, just stick your head up and say pretty pretty to a nest of pterodactyls.
Well, there is, of course, a certain amount of danger.
Certain amount? They'll come diving down on us with teeth like bread knives.
Not with the care I take, Lord John.
Oh, no, old chap?
No. I rather pride myself on my ability to stalk unseen as quietly as a shadow. I can put my hand on this loose boulder, for instance, and rest my weight on it without once disturbing...
Look out!
That's done it. It occurs to me, Professor
Those
Challenger.
brutes are spreading their wings. They're going up.
It occurs to me, Professor Challenger, we better run for it.
Run for it, sir.
Science or no science, yes.
Make for the wood and keep together. If we get among the trees.
Mr. Malone,
Yes,
Have you got the camera?
Certainly, but...
Photograph it! I implore you to photograph that fine specimen coming down for us now.
He's diving at a mile a minute, Doc! Now, come on, make for the trees, all of you. If anybody talks science, I'll brain him. Now run!
We staggered through the brushwood, and even as we reached the trees, the harpies were on us again. Summerlee was knocked down. We tore him up and rushed among the trunks. Once there, we were safe, for those huge wings had no space for their sweep beneath the branches. As we limped homewards, sadly mauled, we saw them for a long time flying at a great height against the blue sky, soaring round and round, no bigger than wood pigeons. Their eyes, no doubt, still following us. At last, as we reached the thicker woods, they gave up the chase and we saw them no more. We halted beside a brook to bathe our wounds.
A most interesting and convincing experience, gentlemen. We are exceptionally well informed, Summerlee, as to the habits of the enraged pterodactyl.
Yes, indeed.
It's worth noting that our young friend has received an undoubted stab, while Lord John's coat could only have been torn by a bite. Professor Summerlee has a nasty cut on his forehead, and I myself have been beaten about the head by their wings. Yes, we have indeed had a remarkable exhibition of the pterodactyl's various methods of offence.
Well, it was touch and go for our lives, and I can't think of a more rotten sort of death than to be ousted by such filthy vermin. I'm sorry to fire my rifle, but by Jove, there was no great choice.
We should not be here if you hadn't, Lord John.
May do no harm. Among those woods there must be many loud cracks from falling trees, which may sound like a gun. Now, I think we'd had enough thrills for one day. The quicker we get back to camp and the surgical box, the better. We don't know what venom may have been in those hideous jaws.
Well, I must confess, gentlemen, I'm rather glad to see our camp again.
Just a minute. Somebody's been here.
How do you mean?
The thorn hedge has been disturbed. Somebody's handled the tins of provisions. Spilled a box of cartridges.
Somebody? You mean apes?
I don't know.
Is anything else going to happen?
But it wouldn't surprise me. When it gets dark, all sorts of things could be looking at us from those trees. We better get a fire going at once.
Oh, this, sir, is mere superstition.
You think so?
What we need, sir, is food. The minds and spirits of all men, even including myself, are depressed by long exertion without sustenance. Good meal, a night's sleep, and tomorrow morning...
One moment.
Yes, Professor Summerlee?
May I suggest, sir, that we sit down and call a conference here and now?
A conference?
Yes, for some plan of immediate strategy.
Oh, by all means, if you insist.
You agree, Lord John?
Blue volcanic clay.
What's that?
Sorry, old chap. I was wool gathering. Go ahead.
Several references, I believe, have been made to Professor Challenger's giant brain.
Come down, no. Modesty forbids.
Very well. I suggest he employed this giant brain on some scheme for getting us off this plateau. He got us here. Now let him get us away.
And our exploration of the plateau?
That must stop, sir. Here and now.
Are you mad, sir?
No, sir. We came here, if you remember, with a perfectly definite purpose, to find out whether or not you were telling the truth.
And you did find out?
Yes, I admit it.
Thank you.
That mission is now fulfilled. We can't explore the plateau, and you know it. It'll require a large expedition and special equipment.
You know, Challenger, there is truth in that.
The plateau is huge. It's thickly wooded with immense trees. Why, we could blunder here for weeks. but still have no notion of the geography.
Thickly wooded with huge trees. Geography.
By George!
What's wrong with you, young fella?
Huge trees, I've got it.
Got what?
Look at that tree there. The one where I saw the ape last night. It must be 100 feet high.
Well?
If I climbed up there tomorrow morning with a notebook and pencil...
You could see out over the whole plateau.
And draw a map of everything. Then we'd have real data, the whole geography for an exploring party later.
That's not bad.
Not bad at all.
Worthy, if I may say so, of a more enlightened intelligence has ever been shown by a journalist in all the history of your repulsive tribe. Will this satisfy you, Professor Summerlee?
If you agree to stop exploring, yes.
Then there is nothing, I think, that will trouble us further.
I wonder.
When I devote the powers of my own intellect to our descent from the plateau, the problem is as good as solved. In the meantime, we take our ease by a good campfire with a starless night outside. There's nothing to menace us now, nothing to trouble our slumbers in all the vast peace and quiet.
Listen.
Wait!
Summerlee. What on earth was that?
Nothing to trouble our slumbers.
Vast peace and quiet.
Malone, throw some wood on the fire.
Right. Got your rifle.
That row wasn't very far away from here. No further away, I'll swear, than the glade where we saw those...
Iguanodons?
Yes, that's it. And you're the Oracle, Professor Challenger. Now, what's going on out there?
A forest tragedy, Lord John. I spoke too soon.
Forest tragedy?
I warned you, gentlemen, that we might meet carnivorous monsters. Beasts of prey that could feed on lions and tigers as a cat feeds on mice.
Then you think...
The big, blundering iguanodon, small-brained and harmless, has been attacked by something that tore it in pieces as easily as you might rip up a sofa cushion.
Something bigger?
No, something smaller, but infinitely more deadly.
Well, I don't know what that bounder is. I'm past guessing anything by this time, but I only hope it's afraid of fire.
Why so?
Because it's heading towards this camp now.
How'd you know that?
You don't live in the bush without being able to smell trouble. And listen. You hear that?
Yes.
To judge by the sound, Professor Challenger,
Yes, Professor Summerlee?
I should say an Allosaurus.
Or a megalosaurus?
Exactly. We speak with insufficient data and without actual sight of the creature.
Look here, Lord John, there's a big gap in our thorn hedge. Do you think it can...
Get through?
Yes.
I don't know. Keep your rifle ready, young fella, and hand me a blazing stick out of the fire.
What are you going to do?
You'll see. But something's got to be done, and done in a hurry. It's outside the thorn hedge. Now.
In the second part of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World, adapted for radio by Peggy Wells and Barry Campbell, Professor Challenger was played by Francis de Wolfe, Edward Malone by Kevin McHugh, Lord John Roxton by Gerald Harper, and Professor Summerlee by Carlton Hobbs. Gomez, Trader Faulkner, Zambo, Tommy Eitel. Special effects were by the BBC Radiophonic Workshop, and other effects were by Janet Mitchell and Lloyd Silverthorne. Technical assistance was by Patience Pratt, and the episode was produced by Betty Davis.